Graduating in 1969, Beckman received a fellowship to study religion in rural Ghana and saw firsthand the debilitating effects of hunger and poverty.
It gave me relationships with very, very poor people that changed the way I feel about the world.
Armed with this new perspective, Beckman spent a year back home in Nebraska meeting with his fellow citizens. Those conversations led him to the conclusion that apathy toward the poor and destitute was at root a spiritual problem. Thus, he decided to attend Concordia Seminary and was later ordained a minister and missionary economist.
In order to deal with hunger and poverty in the U.S. and around the world, it's clear we've got to change big systems, so there has to be political change. But those political changes need to be rooted in spiritual transformation.
After receiving his master's from the London School of Economics in 1975, he spent a year working in the remote villages of Bangladesh before being offered a position as an economist at the World Bank. It was a position he would hold for 15 years, working on poverty reduction programs and leading the World Bank's efforts to engage with non-governmental organizations. While at the bank, Beckman also became involved with Bread for the World, a role that expanded when the organization's founder stepped aside as president.
Then when the founder of Bread for the World, Arthur Simon, decided to retire from being president, I thought, this is the job that God made me for.
Beckman assumed leadership of Bread for the World in 1991 and took up the organization's charge of fighting hunger and poverty through political engagement and advocacy.
The binding constraint on progress against hunger is lack of political will. Creating that political will, that give a damn, to get governments, especially the U.S. government, to care and to do the things that we know can help is the most crucial thing that we can do to overcome hunger.
In working to build that will, Beckman expanded Bread for the World's membership by more than 60% in a decade. Through the more than 5,000 local church congregations and 50 national denominations that are counted as members, more than 1 million Christians have become actively engaged in Bread for the World's mission to end hunger. Each year, Beckman marshals 250,000 constituent contacts with elected officials through letters, emails, and meetings. One of Bread's most effective tools is the annual Offering of Letters campaign, in which Bread for the World members are encouraged to send handwritten letters to members of Congress in support of anti-hunger and poverty legislation. Through this campaign and Bread for the World's annual Lobby Day, its members have been able to generate the political will to pass significant reforms, bringing millions out of hunger and poverty. Thanks to the influence of Bread members, over the past decade, Congress has tripled poverty-focused development assistance. U.S. domestic assistance has doubled, aid to Africa has quadrupled, and funding for agriculture and rural infrastructure has increased 8-fold. Bread for the World has also pushed for broad reforms to U.S. foreign assistance and played a leadership role in encouraging debt relief for developing countries.
So we just see over and over again that ordinary people across the country who care and get active, just a little bit active in pushing their members of Congress, can make a difference.
As David Beckman and his army of citizen advocates work to change the politics of hunger, aid programs carry on the battle on another, more direct front. Among the leaders in this field is Heifer International, led by the energetic Joe Luck. Founded in 1944, Heifer International provides livestock to poor families around the world and supplies them with the necessary training to care for the animals, grow crops sustainably, develop their communities, and lift themselves out of poverty. The global scope and impact of Heifer's work expanded greatly under Joe Luck, who took a rather indirect path to leading one of the world's premier hunger-fighting nonprofit organizations. Born in 1941 in Little Rock, Arkansas, Joe Luck had her first international experience at the age of 4. After her father was drafted to fight in World War II, she and her mother joined other military dependents on the first ship of U.S. families to Japan, where she was exposed to harsh post-war living conditions. After returning to the United States a year later, Jo Luck's parents divorced, and she spent her childhood moving from place to place, attending 6 different schools in 7 years. She studied education at Hendrix College, and her early teaching career provided lessons that she would apply later in life.
Once I entered the global scene in a career way, I was already aware of the importance of diversity and the important issues of justice and how sometimes women were marginalized.
In 1978, she was hired to become the first director of the Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. A year later, she was appointed to Governor Bill Clinton's cabinet as the Director of Parks and Tourism, where she doubled Arkansas's tourism industry by focusing on the state's natural beauty and ecological resources. She continued to teach adults at night and gave an assignment that was particularly popular with her students.
One of my requirements was that they wouldn't just tell me where they were going to be in 5 years, they would picture it. Sketch it, or I brought boxes full of magazines, cut the pictures out, show us what it's going to look like.
One evening, the students turned the tables and asked Jo Luck to do the same.
So I walked over to the flip chart, picked up a marker, and began to sketch, and drew women and children in a circle, and some little chickens, and a baby, and they said, "Where is that?" I said, "I don't know, but I want to be there."
The opportunity would come sooner than she expected.
So about 2 weeks later, the headhunter from DC called me and he said, I have a job called Director of Global Services at Heifer International, and this person will work all over the world to end hunger and poverty, and you've been highly recommended. And I said, I have?
She was hired for the position and began traveling to remote parts of the world. She quickly saw that although women were doing most of the agricultural work, it was men who were receiving Heifer's technical training. So she pursued a major initiative to train and empower women. She also learned that the most effective communication came from sitting in a circle, just like the one she had envisioned. In 1992, just 3 years after joining Heifer, she was promoted to CEO. Her challenge to the organization to identify and focus on its strengths resulted in Heifer's successful management model aimed at empowering its recipients. She was also able to turn around the organization's financial misfortunes by investing heavily in outreach and establishing Heifer's wildly successful gift catalog.
Heifer was able to grow from $7 million to $130 million between 1992 and 2008. And that we actually grew from just under 20,000 donors and supporters to over 500,000 in that same short time frame. And that means we're connecting people in the grassroots of America with people around the world.
With this success, Heifer was able to greatly expand its impact throughout Africa, the Americas, Asia and the South Pacific, and Central and Eastern Europe. Under Jo Luck's leadership, Heifer also expanded its training programs and set a focus on providing families with the proper animals for their individual needs.
We now work with 30 species around the world. It's important that it's appropriate to the environment, the available resources, what works for that culture. So it's everything from silkworms and rabbits and alpaca and llama and pigs and chickens and camels and water buffalo.
At the heart of Heifer's success is the concept of passing on the gift, in which recipients pass on their animal's first female offspring, along with the requisite training, to another family in need, enabling Heifer participants to become not only recipients, but donors as well.
The beautiful thing is, when one hands that offspring to the next, they're giving away half of their wealth.
Through teaching poor communities to become self-sustaining, Jo Luck and Heifer International have educated and advocated on behalf of the hungry and poor. The results have been far-reaching, with Heifer having assisted over 10 million families in 120 countries since its inception. Aiming to build a stronger connection between Heifer's supporters and its recipients, Jo Luck has also established learning centers in the United States. to give visitors a chance to experience the challenges of global hunger and poverty, and to learn how their life choices can affect the impoverished around the world. Both Joe Luck and David Beckman have engaged thousands upon thousands of everyday people in the fight against hunger. And though they have chosen different methods for this daunting battle, both leaders share a sense of hope for the future.
The world has made dramatic progress against hunger, poverty, and disease over the last 30 years. We don't have to put up with 1 billion malnourished people in the world. I think we have good reason for optimism about being able to end mass hunger.
It can be changed. We don't want to just try to alleviate hunger, we want to end it.
And so, as the many ordinary citizens they've inspired continue the fight, the World Food Prize honors these two remarkable leaders, David Beckman and Joe Luck, for building two of the world's foremost grassroots organizations, leading the charge to end hunger and poverty for millions of people around the globe.
World Food Prize laureates, David Beckman and Joe Luck.
As World Food Prize laureates David Beckman and Joe Luck approach the podium, they will be joined by two very important people, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan of India, who is the first World Food Prize laureate, and John Ruan III, whose father, of course, was responsible for bringing the World Food Prize to Iowa in 1990. He wanted to make Iowa the hunger-fighting capital of the world, and he certainly did.
At this time, Chairman of the World Food Prize, John Ruan III, and Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, the first World Food Prize laureate and the chair of the World Food Prize Selection Committee, will present the World Food Prize sculpture to the 2010 laureates in honor of their great contributions to humankind.
Well, I'd now like to invite our two laureates to say a few words.
Thank you so much. Well, I have never been part of a coronation, and I think we just were. It's a magnificent venue, magnificent people, and such a great honor. To the World Food Prize Selection Committee, I would like to sincerely express my appreciation to you for this prestigious and humbling honor. To the late John Ruan, I'd like to say thank you for bringing the prize to Iowa in 1990, and with your generous endowment, assuring its future. Mr. John Ruan III, and the entire Ruan family, I salute you for your continued and sustained support of this prize. I'd like to say to those laureates preceding me, to my dear friend and co-recipient, David Beckman, to all of you who are here tonight and others around the world We're deeply committed to assuring this food security for all people, but in a healthy, accessible, just, and sustainable manner. I am proud to stand among you. To the current and former Heifer team members that are here tonight, including our former board chair, Dr. Tom Bruce, and a current member of our board, Kathleen Campanella, and all the rest of our team that circle this world and who have been so much a part of it, you have taught me so much and shared my passion that we can make a lasting difference. Your wisdom and your compassion will always be a part of me from now on. For my family, represented tonight by my daughter Beth and my son Mark, thank you for loving me enough to support me in my dream to make a lasting difference, even when it meant we were often on the other side of the world from each other for a significant amount of time, but you shared that. I just want you to know you're the best. To a woman who has inspired me and encouraged me to know that I have the ability to make a lasting difference in this world and to never forget that. I want to say to her now, thank you, Secretary Clinton. And one other individual who has really impacted me significantly over the last particular 10 to 12 years, who doesn't even know this. Thank you, Laureate Catherine Pertini. You are very special. To Norman Borlaug, who inspires all of us and who wisely said in his last words, take it to the farmer. If I could ask him tonight, I'd ask his permission if we could also add to that, listen to the farmer. And I cannot stop or close this tonight without saying, Ambassador Quinn, the World Food Prize, amazing team, and your distinguished advisory council. I'm so honored to be a part of your family. And the very final comment I have to say, I'm humbly accepting this award because I'm sort of the symbol of people working very hard, but I'm accepting it on behalf of the farmers, the smallholder farmers, all around the world who are thinking of us and celebrating, and the majority of them are women. They feel so validated by you, so recognized, so refreshed in their self-confidence. And I would like to say, if I were strong enough and couldn't pick that sculpture up, this one tonight is for the farmers.
In honoring Joe Luck and me, this year's World Food Prize really honors millions of people all over the world who get together in voluntary associations of all different kinds to reduce hunger and poverty. Farmers in poor countries, people in our country who try to make it work better by getting together. In my case, the World Food Prize recognizes Bread for the World's network of people and churches across the country who have pushed and in fact have helped our Congress and our government do some things that are really important to hungry and poor people. Bread for the World also has a secular affiliate, the Alliance to End Hunger, which includes Jewish groups and secular institutions, Jewish groups, Muslim groups, and secular institutions of all kinds. And I think this World Food Prize also acknowledges what the Alliance does to build a broad movement that can change the politics of hunger. I do think that the binding constraint on our progress against hunger and poverty is weak political will. So I am really grateful to the elected officials who are here tonight for being here, and I am also grateful for all the good citizens who make it their business to help our elected officials remember hungry and poor people. Bread for the World members are celebrating right now, not just because of the World Food Prize, but because our government's doing some good things for hungry and poor people. The President and Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, have launched an international effort to invest more in poor farmers and in malnourished babies in the poorer countries of the world. Just recently, the President issued directive that will make our foreign aid more effective in reducing hunger and poverty. That would not have happened without persistent advocacy by Bread for the World members across the country. I really want to acknowledge the Bread for the World and Alliance to End Hunger leaders who are here with me tonight. Arthur and Shirley Simon, Pat and Bob Ayers, Eleanor and Bill Crook, Maureen O'Leary, Bob Cahill, Dave and Robin Miner, Rick Steves, Jerry and Karen Kolchowski, Ted Carlson, Joe Martingale, Judy Andrews, coming to the end, Elaine Van Cleve, members of the Alliance Board, and my staff colleagues. In fact, nobody works by themselves, and Bread for the World has a remarkable leadership team. I also want to express my deep gratitude to my wife and to my entire family, to the Ruan family and the World Food Prize Foundation, and to all of you. Everybody who is here is a leader in the world's struggle to overcome hunger. And everybody who is watching us can make a difference. Since I'm interested in the politics of hunger, let me remind you that we have an election coming up on November 2nd. And one consideration as we consider candidates should be, who's going to be good news for hungry people? I believe in God. And I do think, when I look at the progress that the world has made against hunger and poverty, I do think this is God moving in our time, answering the prayers of hundreds of millions of people. Now, over the last couple years, we've seen a huge setback for many hungry and poor people in our own communities and all over the world. But at the same time, we have very clear opportunities to get our own government and other governments to do some things that will help people who are now hungry work their way out of hunger. That's why it seems to me that God is calling us right now to change the politics of hunger.
David. Thank you, David and Joe Luck, for those wonderful, inspiring roads. Now, Joe Luck, it's your turn, you know. Remember, the surprise, right? Yeah, your surprise is coming, so please sit down. Hey? No? You don't have to sing, don't worry. Just, So I have to explain to Joe Luck and David that at the end, when we have a laureates, we try to have the music or cultural performance that relates to their own background. So last year, when Dr. Ejeta from Ethiopia was our laureate, we had a singer come from Addis Ababa and sang. We had Indian laureate. We had Indian dancers come from India. When we had the laureate from Purdue, Dr. Nelson, and I brought the Purdue Glee Club in here. I got in a lot of trouble, but you get the idea. And but Joe Luck, look, you're tricky because you're from Arkansas, and I don't know what Arkansas music is, and you work in Africa, so I made a few calls and I checked with a few people, and I found a group from Arkansas that can do some African music. Now I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but this was the best I could do. So everybody, if you could join me in welcoming all the way from Little Rock, the Philander Smith Choir. Yeah, her favorite. Huh? Yeah.
My brother, greetings my sister, greet everybody